Hey, it's Mike Brennan. We're back again. Yes, it's 2025. Hard to believe. And we've got from Ann Arbor SPARK, Mike Flanagan, Vice President of Capital Programs. He's also the managing member of the Michigan Angel Fund, which was the position that Skip Sims held for a very long time. We have had Skip on the show many, many times. And so we welcome you, Mike.
Well, thanks, Mike, for having me and Matt. Yeah, I was just talking with Skip this morning. I talk to him every Monday morning. He's living upstate Michigan, but he's still involved in the scene. So
Yeah, retirement, everybody. What I've discovered is people that are really active when they retire get really bored really fast and want to keep their hands in it, as it were.
yeah,
So,
yeah.
but anyway, what I wanted to talk to you about was that it was announced just right around Christmas time, or right before Christmas, that the state has come up with is it 60 million or 62 million?
60.
60, and that's being distributed among many groups such as Ann Arbor Spark. I believe you get 9 million. Is that correct?
Correct.
Okay, I read through, I mean, I published the story and then I read through something that you all posted and saw you
Mhm.
quoted in. But I don't understand the specifics of exactly how this is going to play out. So, me being an entrepreneur and also working with Spark, I'm in
Yeah.
Spark Accelerator. What exactly is this money going to be earmarked for? Is it for prototypes? Is it for matching funds? Exactly what it is, that part I didn't understand and when I was reading through it.
Sure. Yeah, no, great question. So it's really for direct investments into Michigan startup companies that are at, I would say, the pre-seed and seed stage, which is traditionally kind of pre-venture capital. So before venture capital funds will really come in and invest in these companies, which is typically when they've gotten through product development and they're in the market and usually have sales north of $1 million. That's when traditional VCs tend to invest, and for those types of companies, as you know, that's they really need that funding to grow to the next level. But you still need funding before that to get through the product development, as you said. So yes, prototyping, yes, getting through beta, getting through kind of initial customer discovery and go to market, and then really trying to help them get to that first, say, million in revenue.
Yeah, that's really the tricky part. I mean, the friends and family thing only goes so far. You can't keep putting
Right.
the bite on them all the time, right?
Exactly.
It's like an insurance salesman. When people see him, they run the other direction. So
Yeah.
that's the way my family members and friends, they'd see me coming and go, he's coming for money. Uh, so if, for instance, I'm developing a software as a service prototype, would something like that possibly be funded?
Yes,
Oh,
yes. I mean,
wonderful.
it really fits under the same criteria that the Michigan Strategic Fund, if you know that fund over the years, it's really tech companies, which is a pretty broad definition. But you're right. I mean, software, healthcare, advanced manufacturing and defense, advanced materials. Really, anything that involves technology, and it's typically, as you know, I mean, a couple of founders starting off small teams that have a great idea. Typically you've got somebody with a technical background, and then hopefully somebody on the business side as well, and trying to take that to market. And like you said, most of these companies don't have networks of friends and family that can get them to that point where VCs are going to be attractive. And then angel investment, we've been working on that through the Michigan Angel Fund and several different initiatives over the years. But as you know, I mean, Michigan still, is behind in terms of, high net worths investing in these companies. So just not traditional for this part of the country. And so it's helpful to have the state come in and be able to contribute. And they're doing that through, like you said, the kind of established network of nonprofit investment funds throughout the state, like Spark, Invest Detroit, BRCC, Michigan Rise.
Matt?
So what size investment would be ideal to come out of this $9 million? Obviously, you want to spread it around, but
Yeah.
roughly what size investment are you looking to make?
So the way we're operating, we do currently operate this fund, and we have some funding for some prior funding from the state, as you know, Mike, that goes back about 20 years, and we're kind of reinvesting returns that we've gotten over the years from successful portfolio companies. But the way we operate it now, to answer your question, Matt, is typically first investment of 100 to 250,000. And then we save money for reserves like a kind of a traditional investor. We're trying to, the way this works is it happens in funding iterations or rounds. So we want to make sure we reserve some to help the company in the next round. So we're participating with other groups, ideally with angel investors and, things like that, in round sizes that might be between, say, 500 and $1.5 million. And we're coming in for, say, 150 to 250,000 of that.
Getting back to the prototype, since that's what I'm most interested in, is there a ceiling on that? I mean, I still have a few $1,000s left in my Sparks account, but they told me I couldn't use any of that for prototype development. Now, does that change this so that there is money available? That's the part, I'm speaking for a lot of entrepreneurs because that's our big bugaboo, right?
Yeah. Yeah, and I think you're referring to like the Business Accelerator Fund
Right.
program, which, is an established program. Ann Arbor SPARK has a version of it, and then there's a statewide version that the Michigan SBDC runs. And yeah, they do have that restriction on, core product development, I think, spend. But this is different. This is really more in an investment round where we're not specifying exactly what the use of funds is. I mean, we do want to know what the use of funds is for, but and want to make sure that works with the investment. But yeah, I mean, as you know, I mean, a lot of these companies still are in the middle of product development, and so for sure, that's definitely an eligible use of funds.
Well, that's really good news because
Yeah.
not only am I an entrepreneur, but I've covered entrepreneurs for 40 years, about 30 years in this state. And that's the number one problem. Everybody says, God, I don't have the team together. I can't put the bite on the friends and family anymore. They've
Yep.
already given as much as they want. And we're
Yep.
just stuck in limbo,
Exactly.
So,
Chicken or the egg problem, right?
yeah, well, it's the
Right.
number one problem for entrepreneurs, unless you come from a real wealthy background, which would not be me.
Right.
So, and we have a good team. I mean, I won't go into who they all are, but yeah, we have all that techie people and stuff, and so that's wonderful news, actually. So
Yeah. Yeah, and it's we think it'll help a lot. I mean, a bunch of you probably saw in the press release we did that a bunch of the other states in the Midwest have been doing this kind of thing for a number of years, especially Ohio has, I think, 10 or 12 of these kind of pre-seed funds throughout the state. And the state there has been funding it over, 10, 20 years now consistently. So they're pretty far ahead of us. And, we actually realized companies were starting to leave the state because they run into this problem that you're
yeah, you
talking
can't
about.
get the dough here. You got to go where you can get the dough, right?
Exactly.
So.
Exactly.
And we refer to that as the state down south, by the way. So
right. Yes.
The state we do not name. But go ahead, Matt. I know you have a question.
Yeah, just curious, how do people speak to someone from Spark and get an idea of what you're looking for?
Yeah, absolutely. Well, I mean, you can definitely check out our website, and we have a pretty thorough, I think, description on we call this fund Spark Capital. So if you look up Ann Arbor Spark and go to the Spark Capital side, you can see kind of the eligibility criteria and kind of how we operate in our process. So you can find a lot of information there, but you can reach out to us directly too. So I think we have an inbox there right on the website that entrepreneurs can apply for funding. So it's a pretty straightforward process. But even earlier in the process, to your point, Mike, earlier, we have an entrepreneurial services team here led by a guy named Bill Mayer. I think you've probably had on the show before, who's been around at Spark, longer than I have actually. And that team works with companies from, first formation, so as companies are trying to get started up, that's typically the best first landing place is with the entrepreneurial services team, and they have a whole process that includes this business accelerator funding that can kind of help you get through those first few steps of the process. And then we're typically coming in on the back end of that when companies have progressed to a point where they're ready for a larger funding round. Yeah, and one of the one of the metrics that we use because we have been working on this for almost 2 years, lobbying directly to the legislature, was that, and I should send you later, but there's a map of the country that shows the amount of R&D spend per state versus the amount of venture capital investment in the state. You've probably seen this too.
Oh, yeah.
Michigan is by far the highest, in terms of the amount of R&D spent. So to your point, we got a lot of great entrepreneurs, coming up with stuff and starting to put money into the process, but then the investment dollars haven't been there. And that's been the number one complaint we've heard as well.
Wow, this really solves the problem. And so folks want to, I'm sure now, once we run this, you're going to have a lot of inquiries.
Hopefully.
So where do they go? Do they go Ann Arbor, USA, right?
Yeah. Our website, I think just Google Ann Arbor SPARK and then go to the SPARK Capital page. You can also reach out to me via LinkedIn. I'm on there, Mike Flanagan, Ann Arbor SPARK. And yeah, I mean, we're talking to companies from all over the state, and yeah, so we'd love to hear from you.